Dear viewers, in this session, we are going to look into the role of microorganisms in fermented foods. This is Devisri, Assistant Professor from the Department of Nutrition and Dietetics, Sita Lakshmi Ramaswamy College, Trichy. Nature uses microorganisms to carry out fermentation processes. And for thousands of years, mankind has used yeast, molds, and bacteria to make food products such as bread, beer, vinegar, yogurt, and cheese. Here is a bit of history for you all. The first realization that the microorganisms were involved in food production process was in the year 1837 when the scientists discovered the role of yeast in an alcoholic fermentation process. Later, when the world-renowned French chemist and biologist Louis Pasteur was trying to explain what happened during the production of beer and vinegar in the 1860s, he found out that the microorganisms were responsible. However, it wasn't until the Second World War that the food industry began to develop the biotechnological techniques that we rely on today to produce a wide variety of better, safer foods under controlled conditions. Currently, more than 3,500 traditionally fermented foods exist in the world. They are of animal or vegetable origin and are part of our daily life. Did you know that the alcoholic drinks are not only the fermented drinks? Cocoa beans, coffee grains, tea leaves, they all are fermented after harvest in order to develop the typical flavor profiles. Moreover, the fermented foods have geographical specificities. For example, in Europe, cheese and bread are widely consumed. In Africa, the fermented manioc plays a very vital role in their diet. In Asia, sauce products are produced from soya beans or cereal-based foods. So what is fermentation? The term fermentation refers to the breakdown of carbohydrates under either aerobic or anaerobic condition. The organisms involved in this process may be a bacteria or a mold or a yeast. Fermentation involves multiplication of microorganisms. The metabolic activities are also encouraged in this process. They break down the complex organic compounds into simple compounds, during which microorganisms produce gas and flavoring substances. The chemical produced by the microorganisms such as alcohols or acids cause a preservative effect on fermentation. The principal chemical involved are the acids, especially the lactic acid and the alcohol. These inhibit the growth of common pathogenic organisms in foods. The example of food preserved by the fermentation are alcoholic products such as beer and fruit wine, acid products such as vinegar or pickled vegetables, yogurts and cheese. This technique is often combined with pasteurization to increase the stability of the product. The fermentation process is classified under four main terms. Number one is the alcohol fermentation process generated by the yeast, which gives out products like alcoholic beverages. Number two is the lactic acid fermentation process, which is generated by the lactic acid bacteria, which gives out products like curd and yogurt. Number three being the acetic acid fermentation process, which is done by the acetic acid bacterium, which gives out commercial substances like acetone. And the fourth being the alkaline fermentation process, which is done mainly by the Bacillus species, which gives out industrial products such as amino acids. So here is another way of looking into the microorganisms in fermentation. So this is based on the kind of microorganisms that are involved. So number one being the bacterial fermentation process, the two being the fermentation process that are created by the yeast, and the third being the fermentation that occurs due to the presence of molds and enzymes. So let us touch base on the advantages of food fermentation. The food fermentation process is accountable for changing the characters of the food, and moreover, fermentation increases the preservation aspect of the food. They improve the color and the flavor, the aroma of the food, and also they boost the nutritional value of the foods. So here is an interesting list of the main types of microorganisms that are involved in the global food fermentation processes. Let us jump onto the types of fermented foods that are produced by the microorganisms. The number one topping the list would be the fermented milk products, for example, the yogurt, cheese, curd, which is widely consumed globally. Then we have our cereal-based fermented foods, for example, idlis, dosas, doklas. Third being the vegetable-based fermented foods, and the most commonly used one is our pickle. The third being the fermented foods that are produced from the soya beans, which is the soya sauce. Let us take a look at the types of fermented foods that is consumed globally. Fermented meat and fish products are consumed widely in the western part of the world. They also consume a lot of non-alcoholic and alcoholic beverages. In the continent of Africa, they consume fermented roots and tubers widely. And we also have the other fermented foods consumed all over the world, which is the tea, the coffee, the vinegar, which is used for pickling, and so on. So I hope you enjoyed this session, and thank you very much for watching.